Hello, and welcome to episode 233 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to see you. I hope you're doing well. I'm back from my break. Last week I was off, and I'm back. If you were in the United States, you were probably celebrating Thanksgiving. So if you're in there, I hope you had a decent Thanksgiving. I hope you were able to celebrate and be safe. And let's hack on some Firefox stuff today. Let's see what's going on. Let me just switch to my screen. So here's today's agenda. If you're new to the stream, maybe you've never seen this before, longtime viewers will know what I'm about to launch into here. A reminder that no plan survives breakfast. I kind of have a sense of what I want to do today. I kind of know, the sorts of things I want to tackle, but things could go horribly wrong. I might get sidelined. I might get sidetracked, blocked, distracted. Who knows what'll happen? This is capturing software development in the raw where things go wrong. Things can, it don't go according to plan if there was a plan to begin with. And there's only a very sort of vague outline here. So you're seeing me effectively do what I would normally do if I wasn't recording. So there you go. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at is something that you have access to. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, it'll be in one of the links sections. I don't know where that is anymore. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the video description. And for the folks who are watching this on Twitch, I'm about to drop it into the Twitch chat. Here you go. Boom, for the Twitch chat people. And I don't know what's up with Evernote. It's trying to synchronize, and Evernote's being, I guess, a little slow. We'll see how that goes. But once that's done spinning, the agenda will be up to date, and hopefully you'll be able to click on the links. Okay, so I also want to point out there is an episode guide. I don't want to go into it too much this week, but there is an episode guide that is lovingly crafted by viewers just like you. Our own prolific Smurf D has been a prolific contributor to the episode guide. The episode guide is to help you figure out what a particular episode was about, maybe to find an episode that might interest you, and you yourself can contribute to the episode guide if you are interested, if that is a thing that you are interested in doing, and you want to add some corrections. Maybe I went way off on a tangent, and you really just want to summarize it, or maybe I got something wrong. Maybe I was wrong about something. That's very possible. Send me a pull request, and if you're not sure what I mean by a pull request, there are links here into the agenda on what that means and how to contribute to the episode guide, which is hosted on GitHub as a GitHub page. What do I want to talk about today? What do we want to do today? Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to highlight something I saw fly by in the Live Hacking Matrix channel, which is something that if you are interested in chatting either during the live stream or afterwards, there is a live hacking room on Mozilla's instance of Matrix or our Matrix server. If you're not sure what Matrix is, it's what we use to chat. It's our instant messaging kind of back end. It used to be IRC. We have I think over the course of a year, about a year now, we've been running Matrix instead. And if you're not sure how to join it, you're welcome to join it. It's free. Here's documentation on how to join. You can come chat. I'm only sort of monitoring the Twitch chat. I only watch it whenever I'm streaming, and then whenever it goes away, I don't see any of the back scroll. Well, one of the things I saw in the live hacking channel is that someone has been streaming themselves live hacking on Thunderbird. And if you're not familiar with Thunderbird, Thunderbird is an email client that is built using a lot of the same foundational technologies that Firefox is built on. Side note, I used to work on Thunderbird full time. That was actually my first gig working and being paid as a software developer, professional software developer, was working on Thunderbird. So I'm very familiar, at least with the Thunderbird that used to be. But since then, Thunderbird has been evolving and finding ways of sustaining itself outside of the Mozilla Corporation. Mozilla Corporation does not contribute to the code base of Thunderbird outside of the sort of platform layer. We coordinate and we sort of collaborate a little bit in that we share some code with Thunderbird, but the Thunderbird community has really sort of taken the reins and are developing Thunderbird themselves. And they're doing a great job. They're still shipping, and they're shipping security fixes, and they're shipping features. And having worked on Thunderbird, I can tell you right now, it's a very difficult thing to ship things in Thunderbird. Not because of the technology or anything, but because the user base of Thunderbird is so much more conservative than the Firefox user base. And the Firefox user base and browser, like users of software tend to be pretty conservative and to avoid, and by conservative I mean they are reluctant to accept much change, and sometimes that's for good reason. Sometimes the changes are not justified, but and Thunderbird, we found that was significantly more so. Like there would be long discussions in mailing lists about like, oh, we've moved a button from here to here, and that just wrecks someone's workflow and that sort of thing. And we have those similar discussions with Firefox, but it was significantly more what words do I use here? It was a more vibrant, passionate discussion amongst the Thunderbird users. So little things like trying to change the theme to fit in more with the operating system would sometimes be met with huge blowback. Anyways, you can watch who apparently Alex is the lead UX dev on Thunderbird. Alessandro Castellani. And here's session 1 and session 2. They're on YouTube. I don't know when Alessandro's doing session 3. You should totally check it out. Maybe that's something you want to get involved in. Maybe you want to contribute to Thunderbird. It is an open source email client. You should check it out. So what I wanted to look at today, Firefox-wise, is related to something we had looked at back in early November. Or was it late October? I think it was late October. Remember, if you were watching this back in late October, you may recall that we were exploring like the stack frames stacking contexts with things like CSS rules and opacities. And all of this was to try and solve a particular problem we've been having with picture-in-picture, which is, let me demonstrate again the problem. I'll do it actually in my default profile. So let's go to YouTube. Let's search for Mozilla Firefox on YouTube and find a video. Which one? Let's look at the Firefox channel. Let's just watch this ad, or not this promotion from our marketing folk. And then if you click, if you notice, there's a picture-in-picture icon right here. There's the toggle for entering picture-in-picture. I'm going to demonstrate a bug. So if you have a particular window size or video size and you open up a semi-transparent menu, notice that the toggle is still kind of visible. It might be hard to see, but it's still visible back there. And whenever I click on it, that was supposed to change. What was the option just there? I think it was to change the playback speed or something. But because the toggle was underneath the mouse coordinates and the surface that I was clicking on was transparent, I ended up opening this in picture-in-picture. I can demonstrate that again. So I want to change the playback speed. If I click over here, that works no problem. But if I click in the region where the toggle is, I get the picture-in-picture window. And the reason for this is at least partially intentional. The reason for this is there are sites that put transparent overlays over top of videos when you mouse over them, and that's so that they can expose their controls in a way that I guess is more visible. If it's a dark video or a bright video, and you want to be able to like put a semi transparent layer over top of it so that your controls really pop. And we wanted to make sure that you could still click the picture-in-picture icon, even if the site had put those things over. But this is sort of an unintended consequence where something that's semi-transparent, and it's mostly not transparent, it's mostly opaque, but you can sort of see the video underneath it. But this is a sort of a side effect of that decision that we made, and we think we can do better. And so one of the things that we were looking at is using an opacity threshold, trying to determine whether something is opaque enough to no longer consider it worth proceeding on the picture-in-picture toggle click, if that makes any sense. Like, let me kind of walk you through the decision that happens. Whenever you click on this region, whenever I click here, what's happening is the picture-in-picture code, before the site ever hears about the click, the picture-in-picture code notices that you've clicked and does a a sample of a hit test effectively on the exact pixel coordinate of the cursor. It's a 1x1 pixel coordinate rect, and we just sort of like drill down with a hit test and say, give me all of the DOM elements that are underneath the underneath that pixel coordinate. But we use a special hit test that only matches on things that are visible. And technically the toggle is visible. And if we find out that the toggle is underneath the mouse cursor, and because it was at least partially visible, that's when we go, okay, well, instead of sending the click to the site, we're going to open the picture-in-picture player window. And that's what's happening here. And what we're hoping to do is to have a threshold, something that we can decide at runtime and say like, hey, do that hit test, but only match on things that are visible to a certain degree, if that makes any sense. So let's say, for example, that this opaque layer, semi-opaque layer, this semi-transparent layer is 90% opaque. So there's only like a 10% transparency to it. We can then decide, hey, this thing is opaque enough to no longer consider the click, and then we skip it. So that is something that we had been looking at that back at the end of October. I had been trying to figure out how to do that sort of hit test modification using the displaylist code, and I'll fully admit that I was not able to make much headway. I understood the like conceptually what we were trying to do, but I just wasn't familiar enough with display lists to make much forward progress on it. Thankfully, someone from our layout team, the ever awesome Emilio on our layout team, is far more familiar with this stuff and was able to come up with a patch. And I have just applied and built this patch. I haven't tested it yet, and I want to test it in front of you and then examine it to see if we can figure out how it works, how Emilio did it. That's my plan for at least part of today. So let's run the build and see if we can reproduce the or see whether or not it actually fixed the issue. And then we're gonna, I guess, run it through some paces. Okay, so here we have our build. We're gonna go to YouTube, which is like our traditional, oh, this is good. Some relaxing jazz music. There's an ad for Toronto. I'm gonna just, hey, Toronto, we're open to serve you from Fresh Slice Pizza in Toronto. Okay, so here we go. We've got our relaxing jazz Christmas tree thing going on here. We're going to try, first of all, let's try opening picture-in-picture. That worked. You're not seeing the player window because, excuse me, it's remembering the size and position. And lately I've been putting the player window on a separate display. So let me move it over here. So that works whenever I try and toggle it normally without any transparency. That's very important. Now let's try our test case. I'm going to try and click on the playback speed. And notice that the toggle has disappeared. Like the toggle, it's no longer considering the toggle as something that's being hovered. The video is no longer being hovered. If I click, if I'm outside of the video, I can see it. But as soon as I go over this semi-transparent region, it's no longer there. And I think that's the right behavior. You know, you don't want to sort of add additional visual noise whenever you're over top of this thing. And if I close it again, then it appears to work. Now, there's another test case I want to try. If you have the mini player here, this is a case where we've got that semi-transparent, you notice we've got this opacity layer over top of the video. This is where I think the solution kind of falls over. Notice that I can no longer trigger picture-in-picture from this. YouTube is putting this opacity over top, and it's enough to sort of throw us off. So I actually think we might want to fiddle with our thresholds here, because we do want to allow it in this case. We also want to not allow it in the other. So I think we can fiddle with the thresholds there, but that's a thing to consider. And then I think it would also be good to write tests for this. That's something I'm not going to make Emilio do. That's something I feel like I can do quite easily. I'm familiar with how we test picture-in-picture, and I can probably write some decent tests for this. Okay, let's see if we can modify well, first of all, let's see how it works. Let's take a look at this patch and see how it works. Let me pump up the font. Danny Colin says there are so many edge cases. That's right. There are lots of edge cases, lots of things to consider. No site, like every site's different. Every video player is different. That's the thing we kind of have to balance whenever we're working on picture-in-picture. All these sites are different. They have different designs and different mechanisms, and that's kind of the trade-off we made whenever we made this a browser feature. We could, in theory, have used like the picture-in-picture web spec that Google has proposed. We could have implemented that, and then sites could then opt in and then like use their own UI to introduce picture-in-picture, and that would have avoided this. However, the trade-off there is then you have the opportunity for sites, bad like actor sites, to abuse the picture-in-picture API to create, you know, the worst pop-ups in the world, things that are always on top. And you know, there's a little bit of worry there. So we made this a browser feature, but these are the trade-offs that we're dealing with, because we want to make it discoverable. We want you to be able to use this thing. Let's see here. So let's start at the interface. So the way that the sampling works, let's go to picture-in-picture child, actually. It looks like Emilio has set a threshold of 0.4. I actually think that's quite low a threshold. You know, I feel like we can raise that to more like 0.9. So anything with more opaque than 0.4 will be considered occluding the button. And I have a feeling that that mini player opacity had an opacity greater than 0.4. That's probably something we can test right now. If we can figure out the opacity of the mini player, let's try and figure that out. Trudeau saying vaccine as soon as possible. Okay, let's open up the mini player and our dev tools. Dev tools. Separate window here so you can see it. Okay. Let's see if we can examine. Let's pretend that we're hovering this thing. So one way you can do that, I don't know if this is going to work. I've never tried debugging this thing before, but we can try hovering the video. We can fake hovering it. No, that did not convince it that we're hovering it. All right, how about the container? Hover. No. How about the movie player? If we hover this. No. We might be out of luck on pretending that we're hovering. Oh, it's just, even if I hover it IRL, it doesn't care. I think I got a feeling it's because it's an advertisement. Let's skip the ad there. But still, how do we make it so that it, what style is changing whenever I hover? There, you see that? There's a class changing. Pause mode. Something in here is changing. Let's see if we can get a little more information. Let's what is it? We can do like break on attribute modification. That's not it. What's causing those controls to show up? Now these controls in here are not the ones we're interested in, I don't think, because this is the shadow root. These are the built-in Firefox like UA widget stuff. So maybe it's down here. Maybe it's elsewhere. Ah, that's interesting. What else is changing? Like what is this control, for example?
It's pre-ordered 20.
What is this control? The play button. And that's going to be inside the mini player UI. And that's the scrim. Notice that the opacity is 0 right now. Oh, come on. Show me how you work. Break on subtree modification. Huh. Well, I mean, I guess I should have known better. Yeah, this is not interesting. The obfuscated code is not very illuminating, I don't think. Okay. The mini player UI. What happens if I hover it? No. The scrim. How about you? Aha! There you are. Okay, that's what I wanted to see. Okay, so the scrim has an opacity of 1, but the background color is 0. Okay, that's what's going on. Check this out. So the scrim is actually fully opaque, has a full so it has no opacity set on it. But check out the background color of it. I don't know if you can see, my head might be in the way. The background color is 0.5 on the alpha channel, I think. Am I right on that? No, I'm wrong. No, I'm wrong on that. My bad. Why is it transparent then? Why are you transparent? Computed. Background color. Oh, no. That's 0.5 on alpha. 0. Oh, yeah, I read it wrong. 0, 0, 0, 0.5. Yeah, okay. I was right the first time. It's on the alpha channel, 0.5 transparent. So half transparent. If I set that to 1, it's fully transparent, or it's fully opaque. If I set it to 0, it's fully transparent. That's how that works. So that's the thing to consider as well. And that's where, I think we're falling over a little bit here. So Emilio's patch, if we go back to the patch for a second, and we can close this down. I think we proved our point. We'll put you back at the bottom. Is that the anything more opaque than 0.4, in this case it was 0.5, is occluding the button. So that's what's harming us here. And I think we can pump that up a little bit and find a right balance. So yeah, the way it works is we're using this API called Nodes for Rect. This is our hit test. And effectively what you do is you pass it some coordinates and you say, okay, I only want the nodes that are visible underneath this this X and Y coordinate, this rect, which is just 1, 1, 1, 1. And I only want the visible nodes. And then this is the visibility threshold. That's what he's added, the visibility threshold. This is wild that it's accepting the comma as an argument to the function call, but I guess that's technically okay JavaScript, but our linter hates it. So now let's take a look at the thing that receives that argument, the change to DOM window utils, SI DOM window utils. So this is the interface change where we've added a new attribute, or a new parameter. A transparency threshold only has an effect if only visible is true. Returns what amount of transparency is considered opaque enough to consider elements not visible. The default is effectively 1, so only opaque elements will stop an element from being visible. Okay, that's good. So our fallback behavior, if users don't, or if users of this API don't actually change anything, well, we should have the old behavior. Danny Colin asks, what about revisiting the idea of proposed of having a page action open pip? I think exposing a web extension API for picture-in-picture would be really interesting. I do think that would be actually very interesting. I think a web extension API needs to be designed, but I think that would be really, I think that'd be great. I would actually prefer that. And then you could have, you know, all of these wacky site adapters that we're thinking of right now to make it, you know, captions work on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime. You could potentially put all of that support into a web extension that is maintained alongside and can react more quickly, so that, you know, if Netflix ships a change, we can just update the web extension and update every user of that web extension, and then you don't have to wait for the like 6-week release cycle, or rather 4-week release cycle now. Okay, so we have this optional float, which is our transparency threshold. That's misspelled, but that's okay. I'm just gonna put a nit there. Typo. Threshold. Nit typo. Threshold. Okay, and then the implementer of this function, nodes from rect. This is here. We got threshold right here, and then what happens is we pass in some frame for point options, which I think is a new structure that has been introduced. Frame for point options. So we have a structure that's being introduced called frame for point options, which includes an enum set of frame for point option. Frame for point option is this, these enums that you can, so flags that you can set. And we have a set of flags that's in this struct, as well as our visibility threshold and a constructor for the struct. That makes sense. And then an implicit constructor if you don't supply any frame for point option options. Sorry, if you don't supply the float for the opacity threshold, it'll pass in 1.0 as the default. Okay. Okay, there's some warnings there, but I'm sure Amelia can figure that out. So let's go back to you know what? This is probably hard to see because my head's in the way. Let me do this. I just realized that's probably really hard to see. I'm trying to think of like what's the easiest way to do this so you can still see what I'm talking about. So where were we? We were at nodes from rect. We construct a frame for point options struct. We set our bits to say, hey, ignore root scroll frame, and if only visible is passed, then we pass in, we set that bit, and we also set the visibility threshold, which will default to 1.0, I believe. Okay. Smurf D says, I've got better lighting today. Hey, yeah, it's a bright day today. This is natural light from a window. So, you know, I'm at the mercy of the weather. One of the things I might invest in is actual lighting in the future. We'll see. Okay, so then that all gets passed to query nodes from rect, which is, I think, something that you will find implemented in a bunch of places. Here it looks like we're updating the callers for get frame for point in a number of different places to use our frame for point options struct. That makes sense. Yada, yada, yada. Change the signature. Yes, yes, yes. Query nodes from rect. Okay. Here now we're accepting the options instead. We're updating the usage of it to correctly access the set of enums. Makes sense. Okay, so all of that was just kind of boilerplate to do the plumbing. Here's, I think, where it gets more interesting. Oh, sorry, this is the nodes from rect part that's interesting. So we take in the visible threshold. That's also, we're gonna have to update the... No, wait, I am wrong. For some reason, my eyes said that that was spelled incorrectly, but it's totally spelled right. My bad. Visible threshold is omitted or given a 0 value, which makes no sense, so give a reasonable default. So we give it a 1.0, and we pass into nodes from rect. That makes sense. And then I want to get to the meat of this. Like, how does it actually work? So this is all boilerplate, updating the callers to use the options bits instead. Okay, this is interesting. So now we say in the builder, set hit test is for visibility, and we pass in a visibility threshold. So that is key, I think. Hit test is for visibility. We return whether or not visible threshold is some. That's a rustism. Monad. And then visibility threshold is a float const. We make sure that we're on a hit test for visibility, and then we return our visibility threshold value or 1.0 as a default again. So yeah, we wrap and visible threshold in this Mozilla sum. That's something I've definitely seen used inside of, that's like a Rust convention that we're starting to use in our C++ code. Okay, so visibility threshold. We're getting into the meat of things here. When hit test is for visibility, we may hit a fully opaque item in a nested display list. We want to stop at that point without looking further on other items. Hit occluding item is false. We get the opacity. What is this structure that we're adding this to? Something called display background color. With the opacity of the display background color, if we want, we can get the alpha. And then, yeah, here we go. If the hit test is for visibility, then we compute that hit occluding item is, and then this looks like a C++ lambda. This is something else. We say, okay, have we already hit an occluding item? If so, then, the way the display lists work, this I remember, is like you're working your way down, like you have this chain of nodes that we've already evaluated, and now we're going through them again to determine their like opacity, and we're culling out everything after the most opaque item, and we're saying, okay, you're not included anymore because clearly everything over top of you is too opaque to be included, so we just sort of like truncate the list. So we're saying, okay, if we've already hit something that's really occluding, then we're done. We've already hit something before. Otherwise, get an opaque region on the rect for the place that we're hit testing. If we're fully opaque, then return true. Otherwise, get the visibility threshold. If the threshold is 1.0, then, we're allowing everything. Even if everything that'd be crazy if we're hit test is for visibility and we passed 1.0, I guess. No, that's not crazy. That's the default. Only if you're visible. So like no transparency is included. So we return false here to truncate. Okay. And then a best effort and could be improved to trust nested opacity items, multiplying them or whatnot, but this is likely good enough. And it can't really always be perfect because we don't want to do stuff like looking at the pixels of potentially transparent images or whatnot. Oh, that's a good point. So we're going to go and look at the item opacity, switch on the item type. Is it an opacity type? If so, we get the opacity. We're just going to compute the opacity. Otherwise, be conservative and assume it won't include other items. And then we say that, hey, your item opacity, if your item is greater than the threshold, then we will return true, meaning we want to truncate. Because if we hit an occluding item, exit early, we're going to pop the remaining items off the buffer. That's when we truncate. Okay, I would not have come up with this solution. What's really interesting about what Emilio is doing here, there are a number of interesting things, but like I find what is really, really interesting is how Rust is influencing how we write C++. We write both Rust and C++ and JavaScript, but we use a lot of Rust and C++ in the platform layer of Firefox, and more Rust is being used, and that's good. I've been learning Rust, and there are a lot of great things about it. The sum and result, like the option and result, I guess they're monads, or what, I don't know what the technical term is for them, but they're like these safe wrappers around things that for like we would have historically used like null pointers for, like really dangerous explosive things. We have these nice ways of returning like whether or not a return value has something or doesn't. Like we have this sort of reliable checkable return value that doesn't like explode if you touch it, like a null pointer, which I think is great. And I see that being used here, as well as what to me is almost like a matcher. This almost feels like matching logic, where like we switch, like we set something and we use a lambda and then we switch. That to me is almost like a Rust match, which I think is pretty cool. Okay. And then the visibility threshold, as we said, was 0.4. I think we can actually bump that up to 0.9. I think that's going to get us what we want. I want to test that out. So picture-in-picture child. Let's look at our threshold. Is 0.4. Let's set it to 0.9 and see what that's like. We're going to build. All right. YouTube. Here's our relaxing jazz.
Leveraging social media and
blah 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 social media. Leverage it. Okay, so here's our picture-in-picture working. We're gonna try our opacity. Yep, that works how we expect it to, so we're not accidentally triggering it. Now let's try the mini player. So see, this is, oh, there we go. That's what we wanted. Yes. Okay, that's working as expected. Okay, and now let's go back to the default player. Yes, this is what we want. Hey, all right, that works beautifully. So I'm gonna give some commentary to Emilio. I'm gonna say, yeah, this is exactly what we want. Yeah, this is basically exactly what we want. Thank you. Would, for the final version of this patch, would you be okay with omitting the change to picture-in-picture child? We'd like to use the webcompat add-on to set a site-specific threshold rather than having a static value. Thank you. I tested both the YouTube video control menu and the mini player case. I'm gonna request changes. But yeah, that's great. That's brilliant. And then what we should probably do is figure out a way of writing some tests for picture-in-picture child. Let me think about how we want to plug all this together. What's the best way to do this? Okay, so we know if Emilio takes our feedback, then we know that Emilio is going to remove the visibility threshold changes to picture-in-picture child. So what I'm going to do is revert my change here. And then I'm going to basically add a commit on top of this that undoes his changes. So I can build on top of that. And then whenever he uploads a new version of his patch that undoes these changes, I can just remove my patch, and then, you know, I don't have to change anything else on top. I don't know if that's better or worse than anything else. So we'll remove that, and then the visibility threshold change. Cool. So just gonna commit undo changes to picture and picture child, and then we're gonna find some I have a pre-existing patch that does the web compat thing. I think it's on this bug already. Yeah, and it already had review from these two, so I can reuse that. Let me see if I can find it, rebase it. Here it is. Here was my attempt to do the layout util thing, and it didn't work out. That's okay, I can prune that now, I don't need that. Rip. Prune it, remove it, and then rebase my change on top of tip, which is the most recent commit. Merge, 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 and then let's take a look at our tests. Oh, hold on. We need to update to the most recent commit, right? Yeah. And yeah, that actually sets a static, or sets a site-specific visibility threshold that we can use. So instead of doing this sort of like weird check that I was doing inside of picture in picture child, visibility threshold, instead of it's or 0, I'm gonna say or 1. Toggle visibility threshold. Okay, so here what we'll do, instead of that, how'd this work? We'll get the toggle state earlier. And then we'll say state.toggle visibility threshold. I think that'll work. Because when we are on mouse over video, we compute the toggle visibility threshold. Let's default that to 1.0. Okay. So let's test it out now. Funk's old brother. Okay. So if we go now to am I clearing my history by default? I think I am. I'm in perma browsing, private browsing mode. How do I turn that off? History. No. There we go. Okay. Going to YouTube. Getting our jazz music. Yep. Skip the ad. Yeah, that's working nicely. Now, the toggle is still appearing back there, but I don't actually mind that. It's not responding to our clicks, and that's the important part. However, we may have trained users to avoid clicking the toggle because of this bug, so maybe they wouldn't realize that it's safe. So maybe what we should do is put that in there. So let's shut that down, rebuild. And then we can consider, there actually might be some tests already with this thing. Am I still not remembering my history? Nightly will remember history. There we go. I think I was testing some configuration. Okay, so we got our toggle. It works. It doesn't appear now whenever we are hovering this thing. That's good. Let's look at the mini player. Mini player works. That's very good. There was, I think in Vimeo, if you go to Vimeo, let's find a Vimeo video. Video on Vimeo. I think I may have just confused it. Video on Vimeo. There we go. The new Vimeo player for videos. Okay, so if we pause it, is this? I'm trying to remember what the story behind this thing was. There was, oh, you know what? It was like was it CNN? It was some video site that also had a transparency overlay. Was it CNN? Videos. Okay, here we go.
Bad Gift Hall of Fame.
No, it's not. Was it MSNBC? So there's some kind of transparency overlay. I remember there was like
No obligation to
no,
enroll.
no. Was it CBC? So there's a semi-transparent. No.
And switching gears a bit, Premier, on the Auditor General,
No.
the Star.
I can't remember what it was, but there was some site. I guess what I just want to make sure of is that the state, we're only choosing to use the threshold on YouTube. So let's open up. Actually, what I'll do is I will open up Content Toolbox, and I will say picture-in-picture child threshold toggle visibility threshold. We're gonna break on that. Let's reload, because we do it lazily. We do it once per document, so we don't have to recalculate it every time.
You need to have.
Okay, did we hit it? Oh, because yeah, there's no override. That's why we wouldn't hit it. So that's good. We're not even setting it. And then that should mean that on YouTube, we're gonna need a new content. Wait, well no, we're on the same content process. If I put on our relaxing music here and I hover this video, then yes, we do hit our visibility threshold breakpoint, and state.toggle visibility threshold is 0.9, which is what we wanted. Okay, we're in good shape. I'm trying to remember if there was a test that we wrote for this as well. Yes, there was. So I'm going to run those tests now. Oh, someone, SmurfD says maybe it's Twitch. Maybe it is Twitch. Let's also test Twitch. I mean, what we've just established, though, is that the behavior shouldn't change for Twitch, because we're only applying the rule to YouTube, which is the only site right now that we're like really worried about for the accidental click scenario.
And so y'all can win tag team.
Blah, 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 blah. No, when you hover, there's like a little bit of a darkening on the bottom and the top, but picture-in-picture still works. Okay, let us run our tests. So the tests that were modified are toggle transparency overlay 1 and 2. So let's test both of those. Mock Moki test. Yeah, there's just 2 of them. Let's run 1 and 2. Oh, what happened here? No such file or directory. Let's build real quick. What's going on there? Let's make sure I've got everything I need. While we're waiting, I'll do a freestyle rap. Fixing picture-in-picture. I would like a pitcher of lemonade. I saw a video about how it's made. What you want to do is peel the lemon, then you juice it, but then you use the peels to get out the oils, and then you add some water, sugar, boil it, and then you add the juice, but only after the water has cooled, and then you get the really good lemonade. That's how it's made by the pros. Chef John, everybody. Here we go. Let's oh, no, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to run the test. And if this doesn't work, then I'm going to be, yeah, what is this? This is an interesting problem. No such file or directory. Plugins, third test plugin. Shell util contents plist. Can I run any tests? I'm guessing no. So here's what you do whenever things are busted like this. You do mock busted. See what has been filed recently on build bustages and tool bustages. That's really interesting. I don't see anything super recent. What could be going wrong here? No such file or directory. Third test.plugin does not exist. Did it used to exist? Do I need to do a clobber build? Third test.plugin. Like, who's referring to that? Third test. Ah. Oh, third test in this case is for fonts. That's not. I wonder if this is related to the fact that we recently removed support for NPAPI, like Flash plugin, and we had these test plugins that we included as well to test the NPAPI surface. Let's look at SearchFox. Let's take a look at beta. See if it has any reference to third test.plugin. It does. Anyone else have references to third test? Third plugin, info plist. I wonder if I need to do a clobber build. I'll bet you the packaging is all messed up. Because when we try and run the tests, run mock commands, we're trying to shell, and then we say info plist on third test plugin doesn't exist. I don't know why. In run desktop test, run Moki test, copy extra files, and we copy tree in the entries. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Copy extra files to profile. So when we're trying to build the profile, we're trying to copy everything, including symlinks. So I wonder, what is this? So that exists. I wonder if maybe it shouldn't. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do some kind of wild. It's gonna. Well, hold on a second. Does this build that I'm on, does it include the NPAPI removal? Update tests, removal of plugins, remove plugin behavior. Yeah, we should have that on here. So maybe I should dist plugins, DOM plugins, test plugin. Still here. Okay, I think what I want to do is I want to pull and rebase and do a clobber build. But that's going to take a long time if I do that. And I want to do other things. So that's too bad. What else can we do while we're waiting for that? Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Let's do a clobber build just to see if this helps. And then the next thing I wanted to do is talk about a startup or a shutdown hang crash that I've been struggling with. This is what we were looking at last time. So, you know, the About Home startup cache, people are experiencing these shutdown hangs. Very frustrating because I thought I had fixed it multiple times. Each one of these patches in here is an attempt to fix it. And people are still experiencing it, and I don't understand. And so I want to do a better job of figuring this out. Let's take a look at the code on SearchFox, talk it through. I don't know if we'll write any to change it, but at least we can talk it through and try and come up with a hypothesis about what might still be going wrong here. So what's happening is that on shutdown, if the About Home cache needs to be written to, we tell our infrastructure, okay, well, write to the About Home startup cache. And we do that in this function here. We check to see if we've never written, we arm the cache task. Cache is armed. If it's armed, then we actually do the write. And then here's the task. So we enter this state of getting the cache streams, and then we never exit this state. We call request cache. Wait a second. Oh, this is Mozilla beta. No wonder that I'm so confused. I was like, why is that code old looking? So when we say cache now, what we do is we check to see if we're running the finalization. And if so, we set up a timeout. So something just occurred to me. Part of the frustration is that with this timer, I thought that like the only way you could time out, well, if we were going to hit the error case, if we have finalized, we will enter here and we'll set a timer. We'll resolve with timed out after this number of milliseconds, which is only a second. We give it a second. And then we race them. And if we've timed out, then page input stream and script input stream will be nothing. And then we will bail out here. That was my thought. Cache task. On shutdown. The cache task is cache now. So we're using this thing called deferred task to debounce requests to cache now. Let me just think here. Where's the debouncing? Here's the task, and we say set up a deferred task. Here's this function, call this whenever, after this many milliseconds after the deferred task is armed, regardless of how many times it's armed, wait this many milliseconds. But we debounce by disarming and arming whenever we see changes. So that way, if like about home changes a whole bunch in a row, we don't like flush the cache every time. We wait until things calm down, and once we've had a break, then we write to the cache. Part of me wants to know what happens if we have a cache task that we're still waiting on, and then we try and finalize it. Because maybe that's what's happening here, is that the cache progress is stuck here, not during the finalization step, but because a previous attempt to cache has failed. Is that possible? Just give me a sec here to think. Cache deferred. Request cache. Parent is requesting activity stream state object. I wonder what happens. Like, if we throw an exception, cache now will reject. What happens inside deferred task if the task rejects? What if it never resolves? These are the things I want to know. And if you're wondering why my machine is a little bit sluggish right now, it's because of the build. Let's read up on what deferred task does. Sets up a function or an asynchronous task whose execution can be triggered after a defined delay. The task cannot be re-entered while running. That's interesting. And I wonder if this is the key. So a previous task was already running. After the current execution turns, the timer is not on. The finalizer not only ensures that any running task terminates. Task finalize. So let's see here. If we call finalize, wait for the operation to be completed. If we're running a promise, then we'll return. Okay. So that's what I'm starting to think is going on here, is that a previous attempt at caching was already underway. And then instead of calling cache now with the finalized argument. We're just awaiting that old... We're awaiting that old right. So maybe I was not aggressive enough because what happened was I put the thing that decides the timeout here inside of the cache now function. Well, maybe I should have put it in here inside of on shutdown. So that even if it's a previous cache task that never finished, we, after a timeout, then just let the whole thing proceed. How's our compile going? Hopefully we're pulling some good stuff out of SC cache for faster builds. SC cache is a cache-in. Are we hitting the cache? Compile requests. Sometimes we're hitting the cache. Sometimes we're not hitting the cache. All right. Anyway. So one thing we could do is try and move the timer in here, which is, I think, a little more, maybe a little more appropriate. Oh, our build's done. Great. Let's see if we can run those old tests for picture-in-picture now. And if this doesn't work, then I'm going to file a bug, a mock busted bug. Although it might end up being that I just need to like pull from central, get a fresh central. This looks better. I think I did need a clobber build. Aha, so that failed. Let's go 2. We're going to figure out that failure in a sec. Okay. So both of these fail, and we should try and figure out why. Browser opacity, what was it? Browser toggle transparent. What? Browser toggle transparent overlay. Oh, with an underscore. We'll look at 1 first. So test that the picture-in-picture toggle can appear and be clicked when the video is overlaid with transparent elements. Also test that site-specific toggle visibility threshold to ensure that we can configure opacity that can't be clicked through. So let's skip this stuff and just do the basic test. So we'll not even test the opacity threshold. I expect this to still pass. It does. Okay, good. So we can actually skip this part and just do the second half. So we set an opacity threshold of 0.4 and then let's just test one of the videos, transparent background. So that works. It's the other one, alpha background, where, hang on. This one is failing for some reason. Oh. Okay, now let's try both. Do we have a racy test here? Okay, so that fails. And where are we failing here? Weighing, so testing video with ID, checking toggle opacity, no toggle policy should be set. Expecting to see the right mouse events, clicking on toggle, expecting no picture window opens. Checking toggle policy. Waiting for hovering state. Oh, wait. Testing with video alpha background. Waiting for the hovering state to be set on the video, and it never gets set. Interesting. Oh, well, yeah, I guess that's true. We've let's take a look at the test page here. Test transparent overlay 1. So transparent background, we should be able to toggle this. Can toggle true. I don't know why I would have set that as false. The fact that it passed is a little disturbing. Okay, so it tries, but it can't do it. This is after setting a visibility threshold. What happens if I don't set a visibility threshold? Okay, that works properly. Well, that's kind of a relief. So it means just maybe there's something wrong with the visibility threshold stuff I've added. So with a visibility threshold of 0.4, let's do some logging. So this should fail based on our observations so far. And I want to investigate that failure. Okay. So it failed. Let's check the mouse down. Threshold. On pointer down. Here we go. Don't know. Checking pointer down. We should log what the visibility threshold is. Threshold is state.toggle visibility threshold. Bailing at 1. And then checking if mouse is over toggle. Dump. Mouse is over toggle. Okay. Let's see what happens when we run that. Sometimes logging. It's all about the logging. Captain's log. That's what he's doing. He's just logging. So what happens here? Oh, this is a different exception. I wonder if it's because I didn't have the window focused. Hold on, let's put this over here. Let's run the test again. So it never reaches full opacity. In this case. So it's not on the pointer down part. We never get to that. We never get to clicking it. Checking last mouse move with opacity threshold. Visibility threshold. Mouse is over a video. Guess what I'm drinking based on the sound of it. Ready? Any guesses? Place your guesses below. Checking last mouse move with opacity threshold 0.4, and we never... It's like it didn't like it. Let's figure out what the elements are. Let's log the elements. Log elements. And then I'll bring up the console. Danny Collin writes T, and you are correct. You are correct. And apparently there's a strange glitch in the green screen. Oh, you're right. What the... But you know what it is? Like I said, it's like I'm at the mercy of here we go. Here's the list. So it doesn't see the video. Doesn't see the video. I am drinking tea. Nailed it. And yeah, there is a weird glitch in the green screen. I apologize. I'm not sure what to do about that because, again, I'm at the mercy of the weather. And this is the sun, like, reflecting off a thing. I think what I'm going to do maybe is end the stream here because like there's this weird tear in the matrix because of the sun. I need better lighting. I need to not have this giant tear. And I can just put my head here. Not amazing. I think this is a sign. I'm going to end the stream. The sun is telling me so. But, you know, we're making slow but steady progress on this thing. Hopefully I can figure out this test failure. Hey, thanks for watching episode 233 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was interesting. Let me know what you thought. Click on this, rate this episode link, and fill in the form. Let me know what you think. There's a fun photo at the end. Every form has a fun photo at the end. Collect them all. Just fill out the form and see the fun photo. And yeah, please like, subscribe, smash that bell. I don't know, TikTok. What are kids playing these days? Anyways, have a great one. I'll see you next week. Happy December. Take care. Let me switch here. Have yourself a great week. Take care. Bye-bye. See ya.